The Hawthorne estate was never a home. It was a testament to my father's control, a dark brick monument to a life built on rigid perfection. When Arthur Hawthorne died, I didn't feel grief. I felt a strange, hollow relief. A chapter was closed. But of course, Father had one last act of tyranny left. I pulled my old, beat-up hatchback right up to the front portico, just so the peeling paint and the neglected grounds would stand in stark contrast to Eli's pristine German sedan. Eli, my elder brother, stepped out, already adjusting his suit and frowning at the lack of maintenance. He's always about appearances, the perfect business consultant, the heir apparent. He never stopped trying to earn Father's approval, even now. Honestly, Sarah, he sighed, parking that eyesore out front is completely unnecessary. It ruins the aesthetic. And you, Eli, are still telling people you advise tech startups? I shot back. I parked it out front because I'm not hiding. You're the one in hiding. Julian, the youngest, arrived last, quiet and perpetually rumpled, clutching his worn law satchel. He was the only one of us who still seemed capable of genuine sadness, though he usually buried it. It's strange being back here. The air feels heavy, Julian murmured. It's called dust and debt, Julian. Now let's go get this over with. We sat in the study, surrounded by Father's leather and trophies. Mr. Thompson, the lawyer, looked terrified, as if he expected Father himself to emerge from the shadows. He read the will, outlining the house, the assets, the $10 million, and then the inevitable condition. The three of you must reside, full-time, in the Hawthorne house for a continuous period of 6 months. If any one of you voluntarily leaves the property for more than 3 days, the entire estate will be liquidated and donated to the Obscure Children's Foundation of New Brunswick. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. This was it, his final perfect torture. He was forcing the 3 people he had systematically alienated to live together until we either destroyed each other or magically became the family unit he demanded. Eli immediately went into a panic, railing about his company and his non-existent mergers. But the moment he calmed down, the desperation was clear. He didn't want the money to get richer. He needed it to survive. We stay, Eli declared, his jaw tight. We set up clear boundaries and we ignore the existence of the others for precisely 182 days. No arguments. We get what's ours. I knew he'd never quit, and I wasn't leaving Julian alone to deal with Eli's fraying temper, so I conceded. The price of freedom was 6 months of suffocating house arrest. The first week was miserable. We became masters of avoidance. Eli claimed the West Wing, where he spent his days generating loud, fake energy into his phone about deals in Geneva. Julian stayed in his room, submerged in legal texts, trying to find the one small crack in Father's airtight will. I took the dilapidated studio over the garage. I needed the smell of turpentine and my own solitude to remind me I was still me, not just Arthur Hawthorne's middle daughter. But the main house, a great cold heart of unresolved feelings, kept calling me back. It was in the dusty parlor while trying to settle in that the house revealed its first secret. As I leaned against the marble mantelpiece, I felt a slight give. I used a thin palette knife, a tool of creation now used for violation, and pried open a hidden wooden compartment. Inside, I found a small, locked wooden box. Father's last game, I muttered to Julian, showing him. A treasure hunt, or a poison pill. Julian looked stressed. Let's just leave it, Sarah. Distraction is lethal. We need to focus. We're already trapped. This house is built on lies. If we want to move past him, we have to find out what he was so terrified of that he had to bury it. I worked on the lock for days. It was a precise, antique mechanism, frustratingly complicated. It felt like another duel with Father. Finally, with a sharp, victorious click, it opened. Inside, there was a small, faded cotton baby blanket, clearly handmade, and a silver locket. I opened the locket. The woman inside was beautiful, but completely unfamiliar. Her eyes held a deep, quiet sadness. It was not Mother. Just then, Julian came rushing in. He had been looking in the study fireplace, and he was holding scorched paper fragments. He whispered, "I found something deeper in the flue," laying the scraps out. "Look, it mentions a massive debt, a ruined reputation, and a woman named Clara." It pointed to a chilling fragment. "I will never forgive you for what you did to Clara and the child." A child. A secret child years before Eli was born. This wasn't just an affair, it was an entire hidden life. Of course, Eli had to burst in then, demanding to know the source of the racket. He snatched the locket. "This is ridiculous," he sneered, tossing it back. "A mistress, a long-ago fling. It's nothing. I have real, actual business to run. We stick to the schedule." "You don't have a business, Eli," I countered, my voice tight. "You have a panic attack on a schedule. This locket and this blanket are the first pieces of truth this house has ever offered, and I'm not throwing them away." I knew where we had to go next, the one place he had forbidden us from setting foot. The attic was a mausoleum of broken memories and moth-eaten fabrics. It smelled of cedar and stagnation. Eli was miserable, complaining about the dust and the structural stability. Julian and I, however, were focused. He kept the good stuff, burned the bad, and left the rest to rot, I noted, looking at old ledgers. Except for an unexplained gap in transactions about 40 years ago, something disappeared. Then Julian found it, a section of floorboards that didn't match the surrounding wood. They had been laid recently, deliberately. Without a word, Julian grabbed a crowbar. We pried up the boards, finding a small, sealed-off partition. With quiet, desperate force, we tore through the thin wall. The space revealed a small room. It was a nursery, painted a faded, buttery yellow. It held a few wooden blocks and a rocking horse, but no crib. It was immaculate, yet utterly lifeless. "It's a ghost room," I whispered, the air catching in my throat. A silent, perfect tomb. Eli just stared, his face pale. The discovery had unsettled him more than any financial crisis. This was a man who didn't just hide his grief, he literally walled it up and lived above it. This revelation was the beginning of Eli's undoing. He stopped the fake, loud calls and started making hurried, frantic, quiet calls late at night. I could feel his facade cracking under the immense pressure of the 6-month confinement. Late one night, I heard him. He was talking to a property appraiser, his voice ragged with desperation. "I need the final valuation now," he begged. "I need to know the equity I can access immediately. The bank is breathing down my neck. If I can prove collateral, I can stave off bankruptcy. The 6 months, that's just a formality." Julian was standing silently in the doorway, having also heard the confession. "You're ruined, Eli," Julian said, the accusations simple and devastating. "You've been lying to us for years. You risked costing us everything just to save your reputation for a dead man." Eli was silent, defeated. The lie was exposed. With Eli's financial ruin exposed and Julian's moral outrage quelled, we had a moment of clarity. The house was not just filled with our secrets, it was a museum of father's shame. I tracked down the name Julian found, Mrs. Martha Perkins, the former housekeeper. I found her in a quiet retirement home. She was the final witness. "Clara," Mrs. Perkins said gently, holding the locket, "Arthur loved her, truly, but she was poor, not suitable. When his own father threatened to cut off the inheritance, Arthur chose the money. He chose the name. Clara had the child, a boy, and he was stillborn. Arthur was devastated by the loss," Mrs. Perkins continued, her voice thick. "But the greater shame was that he had loved someone imperfect, and he had lost their child through his ambition.
He paid Clara to leave, paid her silence, and then he built that yellow room. He married your mother, and their marriage was a transaction. He became the hard, controlling man you knew because he couldn't face the weak, loving man who lost Clara. My whole life suddenly made sense. Everything, the pressure, the judgment, the impossible standards, it was all a monument to a perfect lie. I returned to the house and told my brothers the complete truth. The tension was replaced by a shared, profound grief. We had been fighting over the symptoms, but now we understood the disease. He ruined his life to maintain the Hawthorne name, Eli whispered, looking utterly lost. And I spent my life trying to earn the approval of that monster, only to fail anyway. We've been living in his grief, Julian concluded. Now we stop. The last few weeks of the 6 months were transformative. We stopped fighting. Eli admitted his debt. Julian confessed he hated law and wanted to teach history. We were talking not as rivals, but as survivors.
On the morning of the 183rd day, Mr. Thompson returned. "The condition has been met," he announced, ready to finalize the transfer. But we weren't ready. Julian stepped forward, looking at the rocking horse we had removed from the nursery. "Wait, Mr. Thompson, I think you'll find there's one more thing." Julian explained that he had taken the rocking horse apart. It felt too symbolically to be empty. And he was right. Tucked inside the hollowed wood of the rocker was a single yellowed sheet of paper. "A second codicil," Julian announced, holding it up. The lawyer looked ready to collapse. Julian opened the paper and read our father's final, desperate words. "To my children, the 6-month clause in my primary will is a test designed to fail, to confirm my misery. But should you, through shared experience in this house, come to a place of honest reconciliation, then the entire estate, the house and its assets, is to be transferred to you immediately upon the lawyer's reading of this simple truth. Reconciliation." That was the key. We had been forced to face his past, and in doing so, we had been forced to face our own. We had broken down our barriers and told the truth. "We told the truth," I repeated, a wave of emotion washing over me. Eli admitted he was ruined. Julian admitted he wanted out of law. And I admitted that I actually missed them both. The $10 million was suddenly irrelevant. We had earned something far more valuable, a future free of his control and a bond forged in shared shame. We decided to keep the house, not as a memorial to his misery, but as a bizarre, massive space for us to figure out our new, imperfect lives. The attic had taken its toll, but it had finally given us the family we deserved.